ברשות מרד האתרא, ידידי הרב שווקי, ידיד נפשי הרב קצין, קהל קדוש. So I arrived in Deal just a short time ago, and this is my first opportunity to address the members of this beautiful community. I saw many members of this community in the past 10 months in Israel, when people came on missions, came to visit the land, and many of them came to my home to hear divrei chizuk. But I am moved to see this beautiful shul. So we are in the midst of the 3 weeks, 21 days between Shiva Asar Tammuz and Tisha B'Av. These are days of mourning, days of profound sadness, days in which we remember and we mourn Churban Beit HaMikdash. Chazal say at the end of Masechet Ta'anit, Kol HaMitabel Al Yerushalayim Zocheh V'Ro'eh B'Vinyana. All those that mourn Yerushalayim see its reconstruction. And the Khatam Sofer asks, the proper language should be Kol HaMitabel Al Yerushalayim Yizkeh V'Yir'eh B'Vinyana. In the future tense, why do Chazal say Zocheh V'Ro'eh as if in the present? The Khatam Sofer explains, Gzera al hamet sheyishtakach min halev, Yotzer ha'adam, HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw to it. The time heals. And even the most beloved, as time goes by, we don't forget, but the pain is no longer so prevalent, no longer so obvious. We move on. Avilut is a maximum of 12 months. Father and mother. Other relatives, 30 days. But we never forget Yerushalayim. The Churban was 2,000 years ago, and we cannot forget. And every year we mourn. And that in itself is a testament that Yerushalayim lives on. If Yerushalayim would be dead, we would forget her. Yerushalayim lives in the hearts of the Jewish people, in the minds of the Jewish people. Yerushalayim lives in our prayers, in our dreams. Zocheh v'ro'eh b'vinyana. So these are days of sadness in which we remember our days of glory, the Beit HaMikdash. And not only Yerushalayim lives on in our lives, in our hearts, so does the Churban. All our trials and tribulations, all our pain and suffering, everything is a manifestation of Churban Beit HaMikdash. I said many times recently, Yirmiyahu Navi wrote Megillat Eicha. And in Megillat Eicha there's a posuk, Bachot tivkeh b'layla v'dimata al lechya. And the Medrash on this posuk, Chazal say, Maaseh b'Rabban Gamliel. Rabban Gamliel had a neighbor, a woman that cried all night because she lost a child. Rabban Gamliel, from the other side of the wall, heard this woman crying. It broke his heart, and he cries along with her. And Medrash says that is what the Navi means when he says, Bachot tivkeh b'layla v'dimata al lechya. And one wonders, this is a personal human tragedy that can strike anywhere, anytime, anyone. How is this associated with Churban Beit HaMikdash, with Megillat Eicha? And the answer is a simple one. we need to understand what Beit Mikdash means and what the Churban means. So the Beit Mikdash is not only a technicality, not only a house where we brought sacrifices, where we brought korbanos. Beit Mikdash is the dwelling of the Shekhinah amongst us. Hashra'at HaShekhinah. Shekhinah means He'erat Panav Shel HaKodesh Baruch Hu. When the Shekhinah dwells amongst us, HaKodesh Baruch Hu shows us His face, His smile. Ha'oras Ponim is Midat HaRachamim, and that is a utopian life of bliss. So the Novi Zechariah in Perek Ches, when he describes Acharit HaYamim and the days of the Geula, the Novi says, Od yeshvu zkenim v'zkenot b'rechovot Yerushalayim, ish mish'anto b'yabo mirov yamim, ילדים וילדות משחקים ברחובותיה. It's not only about the Kohen Gadol. It's not only about the Korbanos. It's not only about the Ktoret and the Lechem HaPanim. ילדים וילדות משחקים ברחובותיה. So when Rabban Gamliel hears his neighbor bitterly crying all night for a child that died, that is a manifestation of Chorban Beis HaMikdash. Because Chorban Beis HaMikdash is Siluk HaShekhinah, and that is Hester Panim. Hester Panim is Midat Adin. Midat Adin equals tragedy and sadness. So this little child shouldn't have died. He should have been one of those Yelodim v'Yelodes Mesachakim Berechovoteya. So when children die, that is a manifestation of Churban Beit HaMikdash. What we are experiencing today in the land of Israel and Eretz Yisrael is a manifestation of Churban Beit HaMikdash. This tragic war which is dragging on for 10 months, and every day, or almost every day, young people, young soldiers dying. It's tragic, it breaks your heart, and it is a continuous reflection of Churban Beit HaMikdash. Because if we would be Zoichet to Hashra'at HaShekhinah, we would have peace in the land. And young people, young soldiers would not be dying. Yes, this pain and this suffering is a manifestation of Churban Beit HaMikdash. And nobody knows how and when this will be over. And Israel is once again in an existential threat, maybe the greatest existential threat since the Shoah, since the Holocaust, since the tape was established. But we are people of faith, and our emunah is firm. And we know, ultimately, we will prevail. Masechet Avodah Zarah Daf Yud Chet, one of the most tragic events in the days of Churban Beit HaMikdash. Chazal tell the story of Rabbi Hanina ben Tradion. Gazru haromeim shelo yasku b'Torah. And like Rabbi Akiva ben Yosef, his friend Rabbi Hanina ben Tradion, Makil kihilot berabim. Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma disagrees, and he says, I ato yodaya she'umazu min hashamayim hemlichua, שהרי החריבה את ביתו, שרפה את היכלו, איבדה את חסידיו, ועדיין היא קיימת. So how do you dare to bring people together in public and teach Torah? And Reb Chanina ben Teradion answers, Min hashamayim yirachamu. Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma says, אני אומר לך דברים של טעם, ואתה אומר לי מן השמיים ירחמו. And he says, yes. Obviously, Reb Chanina ben Teradion says, and that is what Rabbi Akiva ben Yosef felt. If we don't learn Torah, we are doomed. B'shat hagzera, our only hope is Torah. And then the Gemara goes on to tell the story. Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma ala v'sara shamayma, v'alchu gdolei Romi lelavoto. On the way back from the Levaya, they caught Rabbi Hanina teaching Torah. He was taken into custody, and the verdict was harsh. The Romans wrapped him in a Sefer Torah, and they burnt him at stake. And all his Talmidim were standing around, looking at that horrific, terrible sight. And the Talmidim asked Rabbi Hanina ben Teradion, Rabbi, ma ata ro'eh? What do you see? And he answers, Gvilin nisrafim va'otiyot porchot. I see parchment is being burned, and the letters are flying about. Tosfot on the spot asked, why did they ask Ma'at HaRoeh? Why did it occur to them that he sees anything? Interesting. Tosfos answers two tiruts and two answers. One is, Otiyot Porchot, the letters flying about, made some noise. They heard some strange noise and they saw nothing. And that is why they asked him, Rebbe, do you see something that we do not see? And he said, yes. The other answer in Tosfos is a strange one. Hayanir elahim sheyesh lo lirot shum davar teima malachim o davar acher. At such a momentous moment of tragedy and of holiness, when one of the greatest sages of the generation is burned, wrapped in a Sefer Torah, they assumed probably he sees something, angels or something else, and that is why they asked, Ma ata ro'eh? And now I share with you my own interpretation and understanding. Maybe the question, Ma ata ro'eh, wasn't necessarily what do you see with your eyes, but rather, what do you foresee? What is going to be? What is our fate? The broken-hearted Talmidim, one great Rebbe died, and the other is being tormented, tortured, and burned. Hayesh tikva la'achritenu. Hayesh sachar le'po'ulatenu. What's going to be? Asked the broken-hearted Talmidim. Ma ata ro'eh, b'lashon HaKodesh, doesn't necessarily mean what do you see with your eyes, but ech nir'ah, what is going to be. And Rabbi Hanina gives them words of faith and words to strengthen their emunah and their resolve. And he says, Gvilin nisrafim va'otiyot porchot ba'aviyah. The Beis Halevi, in his introduction, explains, every Jew is like a Sefer Torah. And that's actually a Gemara twice in Shas. Shabbat Kufei, Moed Koten Chavchet. העומד על המת בשעת יציאת נשמה חייב לקרוע, הרי זה דומה לספר תורה שנשרף. When you stand, when a Jew gives back his neshama to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, at the moment of his demise, you need to do kriya. And why is that? דומה לספר תורה שנשרף. A Yiddish neshama, our neshamas are connected with the letters of a Sefer Torah. That is in Nefesh HaChaim, Shar Aleph, Perek Yud Aleph. Kedushas Levi, Parshat Bamidbar. Are you all familiar who is the Nefesh HaChaim? Reb Chaim Evolozhin, the greatest disciple of the Vilna Gaon. Who is the Kedushat Levi? Rabbi Levi Yitzchok Mirbardichov, one of the greatest Hasidic masters. So if anyone is neither familiar with the Nefesh HaChaim nor with the Kedushas Levi, this thought is also shared by the Pnei Yehoshua in Kiddushin Daf Lamed. Every Jewish neshama is associated with some letter in the Sefer Torah. So Reb Chanina ben Teradian encourages his Talmidim and he says, yes, I know how you feel. It's tragic, but you should understand. Gevila Nesuf, and they could burn our bodies. Nobody could destroy Nishmas Yisrael. We are the people of eternity. And no one could ever destroy us. They could torture our bodies. They could kill us. Gvilin Nisrafim. Avalotiyot porchot ba'aviyah. The word poreach in Hebrew, in Everett, has two different meanings. It means to fly about. It also means to blossom and to give fruit. Otiyot porchot ba'aviyah. ואותן אותיות עתידים לפרוח. Our parents, my parents, were survivors. They lost most of their family in the Holocaust, both my father and my mother. My great Rebbe, the Kleisa Moga Rebbe, was the ultimate survivor. He lost his wife and all his 11 children in the Holocaust, and he was left alone in the world. And that sacrifice, those 6 million Jews that were murdered and burned, their neshamas were not destroyed. Their bodies were burned. Otiyot porchot ba'aviyah. And what we witness today is the pricha, the blossoming of those otiyot sheparchu ba'aviyah. We are the people of miracles, the people of eternity. Rabbi Yankov Emden, 300 years ago, wrote in the introduction to his magnificent Sidur, Sidur Sharei Shamayim. And I quote, and then I'll translate. Chai Roshi, כאשר אני מתבונן בקיום אומתנו בגלות, שא אחד בין 70 זאבים. גדול הנס הזה בעיניי, יותר מכל הניסים שנעשו לאבותינו במצרים, על הים ובארץ ישראל. When I think about and I observe the fact of our existence, that we're still around, this is a greater miracle to me than the 10 plagues, than the splitting of the sea, and Ma'amad Har Sinai. And if Rabbi Yankov Emden wrote that 300 years ago, I wonder what would he write today? What have we endured in the past 300 years? What terrible nisyonot, beruchaniyut, ubegashmiyut, bechomer, uveruach, culminating in the terrible climax of the Shoah. And miraculously, we're doing quite well. What would Rabbi Yankov Emden write today? I could only guess he probably would write that this miracle is as big as Briat Shamayim V'Eretz. I don't know what else one could write. And this gives us chizuk. And many times I say, by the course of human events and human history, we should have been 2 or 3 pages in the history books. And somewhere between the Roman Empire and ancient Troy, we would read, there was a people that called themselves the Jews, claimed to be descendants of the patriarchs. They rose to prominence so-and-so BC and sank into oblivion when their temple was destroyed so-and-so AC. That would be normal. But we're not in the history books. We're alive, we live, we thrive, we grow, and miraculously, we're doing quite well. And in our generation, we are witnessing a rebirth of Torah in the entire world, every little city in America, hundreds of kollalim everywhere throughout the United States. In Israel, there's not one little town where there's not a yeshiva or a kollel. My parents, walking out of Auschwitz, would never imagine that this would ever come to be. So yes, we are the people of miracles. And we are confident that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be with us. And we will overcome. Sad, tragic, but we are not afraid. We know HaKadosh Baruch Hu was with us because he always has been. And as we say every year, B'leila Seder, שבכל דור ודור רואים דמלנו לחלויסנו, הקדוש ברוך הוא מצילנו מידם. What is the secret of this resolve? What is the secret of our eternity? So let me tell you a story about my great Rebbe and my unforgettable father. My father was a great Talmid Chacham. He was an Ilui. In the east side, we were neighbors with Rav Moshe Feinstein. And Rav Moshe tried to convince my father to go into Rabbonis because he was a huge Talmid Chacham. My father's name was also Moshe. And Rav Moshe told my father, there's a town in upstate New York, Liberty, and Winter fällt a große Schnee. I don't think anybody speaks Yiddish here. Maybe some do. He said, winter, there's a heavy snow and you can't leave your house. So Moshe, I promise you, one winter and you're going to be a God of Yisrael. Didn't occur to them, Moshe, if you can't leave your house, what are you going to do all day and all night? You're going to learn Gemara. What else do you have to do? He did not convince my father. My father was a businessman, but he was a huge Talmid Chacham. My father and his entire family arrived in Auschwitz. First day, Shavuos 1944. That very same day, grandparents, father, mother, 5 out of 8 siblings were sent directly to the gas chambers and the crematorium. My father and 2 younger brothers were sent left to life. One day later, the Kloisenberger Rebbe arrived. On that very same day, he lost his entire family. My father heard that the Kloisenberger Rebbe is one barracks next to where he was. And my father so much wanted to get to know the Rebbe. He sneaked out in the middle of the night, sneaked into the next barracks, and that was putting your life in immediate danger because the Nazis in the watchtowers, if they would see any Jew roaming the premises in the middle of the night, they would shoot to kill. Early morning, my father approaches the Rebbe and he says, Rebbe, I am so-and-so, and it'll mean so much to me to get to know the Rebbe. The Rebbe frowned down on him and he said, young boy, Bocher, if you think it's going to do you any good, it's not going to do you any good. And my father responded, of course it's going to do me good because we could talk and learning. And the Rebbe was taken aback and he said, young boy, you're in Auschwitz and you want to talk and learning? And my father said, of course I do, because otherwise, how will we prevail? How will we make it? The Rebbe was moved. He gave my father a big hug. And they talked and learning for the next 12 months till the war was over. And they talked and learning for the next 45 years. And whenever I tell the story, I say what my father instinctively felt in his heart when he was barely 18 years old. It is what Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai felt 2,000 years ago. And when Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai finally gets to meet the Roman commander Vespasian, Aspasianus. And miraculously, this Jewish scholar has some chen in the eyes of the Roman commander. And Aspasianus tells Rabbi Yochanan, make a wish and it will be granted. What is his first wish? What is the first thing he asks for? Ten li Yavne v'chachameh. And some of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's peers, some of his chaverim, were disappointed. You should have asked for the Beis HaMikdash. But Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai knows Beruach HaKodesh that the Beis HaMikdash is doomed, and it will not be. And he also knows that the only guarantee for our future is Yavne v'chachameh. What my father felt in his heart. We need to talk on learning. If we talk on learning, we live. If we cease to learn, we wither away. And we die. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai knows the Beis HaMikdash is doomed. And the only guarantee for the continuity and the future of our people is Yavne v'chachameh. As long as we learn, as long as we talk on learning, we live. And that is the famous mashal of Rabbi Akiva to Papos ben Yehuda and Brochas Daf Samach Beis. Like fish in water. We leave the water, we die. In water, there are many dangers. But this is where we live. And this is what gives us life. Without Torah, we perish. And that is what we've been doing for the past 2,000 years. If we go back 100 or 200 or 300 years, Jews were dispersed among all the nations. What could we share? What could we do together? If a Jew from Amsterdam would meet a Jew from Taiman, from Yemen, what would they share? Different culture, different language. They wouldn't understand one another. A Jew from Hamburg, a Yekka, would meet a Chassid from Varsha. What would they share? Different culture. They couldn't even eat together because the Jew from Hamburg wouldn't eat schug, and the Taimani wouldn't really like gefilte fish. And the first time the Chassid from Varsha would stretch out his hand into a bowl of arbis, you know what arbis is? And from the bowl into his mouth and back into the bowl, the Yekka would run out of the room. The sitter of one would be totally unfamiliar to the other. What could they share? The only endeavor they shared, they talked and learned. So the Mishnah was composed in Eretz Yisrael. The Gemara in Babel. The Rambam wrote most of his work in Spain, and the Kesef Mishnah, the greatest interpreter of the Rambam, in Eretz Yisrael. Shulchan Aruch was composed in Israel, and the Ramah in Krakow in Poland. Different countries, different cultures, but they share the same title. The same Shisha Sidrei Mishnah, the same Gemara, the same Rambam, the same Beit Yosef. That is what we've been doing for 2,000 years, and that is what we intend to do. As much time as we still have left. And Bias HaMoshiach. So this community is a community based on Torah. I know there's a lot of learning going on. That is our future. That is our hope. That is what kept us going for thousands of years, and that is what we intend to do as much time as we still have left. Ad Biyan HaGoel. So in these days, as we mourn the Beit HaMikdash, and we do not forget our days of glory, and we mourn the pain and suffering of our everyday lives, and especially what is going now what is happening now in Eretz Yisrael. And I know that Jews everywhere in the world, all Jewish hearts beat to the same rhythm. And I've been seeing hundreds, maybe thousands of visitors from Chutz La'aretz coming to Eretz Yisrael. And I tell them all, and I said this many times, when people come from the entire Jewish world to visit Israel, it has become a mantra. And I tell them all, are you aware that you're insane? And they look at me puzzled, why does the Rav think we are insane? And I say, because sane people stay away from a war zone. There's been a terrible war raging in the Ukraine for 2.5 years. And we're not aware that hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians from all the other countries are coming to visit Kharkov and Mariupol and Lviv. Everybody stays away. We are beautifully insane, magnificently insane, because Jews are not only a people, we're like a family. And when your brother is hurting, you want to hold his hand. You want to sit next to him. You want to feel him. And it's not enough to give him a phone call from 1,000 miles away. We are one people. We are one family. And we all feel the pain. And when you feel the pain, you want to be helpful. So you could be helpful in many ways. But how could people sitting in Deal in New Jersey be helpful to what's happening in Eretz Yisrael? Your Torah, your Tefillas, your Chesed make a difference. So learn more and learn better. Daven more and daven better. Give more tzedakah. And do whatever you can to bring people together. Ba'ava, ba'achava, b'shalom, b'riyut. Achdus is so crucial, always, but especially in times of war. בזמן שישראל באגודה אחת אין כל אומה ולשון יכולה להם. And Chazal give the famous mashal of aguda shel kanim. One straw, even a baby could break. But when you tie together a bundle of straw, Shimshon HaGibor can't break them all. Unity is strength. And when we stand together, Kodesh Baruch Hu loves us. And no one could overcome us. ונתתי שלום בארץ ושכבתם ואין מחריד. Ibn Ezra adds on one word. And how much could one word convey? ונתתי שלום בארץ, writes Ibn Ezra, ביניכם. Not peace between you and your enemies, between you and other nations. ונתתי שלום בארץ ביניכם. And then, ושכבתם ואין מחריד. So our call in these days of mourning, when we remember the Chorm of Weiss and Eidish, and we understand and appreciate all our pains and suffering, our trials and tribulations, are all a manifestation of Chorm Weiss and Eidish. Kodesh Baruch Hu is calling out to us, be better, do tshuva, learn more, daven better. Just do your own cheshbon nefesh, and that is what we could do to be helpful in this time of tragedy, and that is what we could do to be mekarev bi'at Yishiach Tzedken. We should all be zoicha to the fulfillment of the nevuah of Zechariah in Perek Chet. Tzom HaRevi'i v'Tzom HaChamishi, Tzom HaShvi'i v'Tzom HaAsiri, yiyu lebeit Yehuda, לששון, לשמחה ולמועדים טובים, במהרה וימינו אמן.